As is tradition, since I've been chair, I've asked and thought it was nice to recognize a student or student group at the beginning of each meeting with the national anthem. So I am going to ask and announce Kylie Robinson. She's a sophomore, double majoring in pre-biostatistics and music and minoring in music theater performance. She's from the Holly Springs Apex area. We had a good conversation about that this morning. And so I'd ask everyone to stand while Ms. Robinson sings the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets the bombs bursting gave the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the hope
And I like starting off the meeting that way because it does remind us why we're here, our great students who have exceptional talent. That's why we all do what we do. Kylie, good luck with the biostatistics and the music. At this time, I'll call on Malcolm Turner, Secretary of the Board, for a roll call.
Ms. Otter-Sneal, Mr. Bullock.
Here.
Mr. Bryan.
Here.
Ms. Brown. I'm sorry. Ms. Van. Mr. Davis. Dr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Cotis.
Here.
Mr. McCullen. Mr. Meekins. Mr. Patel.
Here.
Mr. Pryor.
Here.
I'm here. Ms. White.
here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. At this time, as Chairman of the Board of Trustees, it's my responsibility to remind all members of the board of their duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict of interest as required by the Act. Each member has received the agenda and related information for this Board of Trustees meeting. If any board member knows of any conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matter coming before the Board of Trustees at this meeting, the conflict or appearance of conflict should be identified at this time. Any conflicts? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to approval of the consent agenda. Having already read the materials listed under the consent agenda, is there any item that needs to be removed to the discussion portion of either the open or closed session of the agenda? So I'd ask board members to take a few minutes and look at the consent agenda, and I'll read it if it's easier. It's we had approval of open and closed session minutes from November 9th, 10th. That's just approval of the minutes. Ratification of the mail ballot for the Vice Chancellor for Development, appointment and compensation. Ratification of Tier 1 salary actions, ratification of Tier 2 appointments, spending authority on the Glaxo Building mass spectrometer relocation. Requires a big truck, right, Mr. Provost? Advanced planning, spending authority for the dental complex fire alarm replacement, Fordham Hall chilled water process loop and refrigeration equipment replacement. Designer selection, brick house bullet electrical upgrades, genetic medicine building, first floor lab renovation, demolition approval for Francis Owens, approval to convert Annie Lewis Wilkinson Distinguished Professorship as a time limited and renewal. And we heard from the provost on that last item. Is there anybody that would like to discuss any of those matters further? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve? Have a motion from trustee Davis and I have a second from trustee Patel. Any additional discussion? Hearing no additional discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you. So I'm not sick. I have been working to lose weight. I am following in the footsteps of George Battle. I don't know where George is. He was here earlier. Who's my now you're my I look up to you, Vice Chancellor Battle, man. I saw you last meeting. I said, man, I got to get to it. So thank you. I do want to recognize the Chancellor and Nate Knuffman for their and your team, including Steve Agostini and others who have been working over the last, 60 to 70 days with members of the faculty, deans, and CFOs at each of the schools in the development of the university's budget. The process, from my discussions with the Chancellor and with Vice Chancellor Knuffman, has been robust and productive. And we heard from yesterday, we heard from Dean Ramona Denby Brinson from the School of Social Work, who presented to this board a very thorough analysis of the steps that she, for example, has taken in aligning her budget with the strategic plan of the university. The Chancellor set that out as sort of your guiding principle last year when the all funds budget became a reality as a result of actions passed by the Board of Governors. And so that exercise from this, and I've talked to all members of this board in one way or another about that, that process is very, very instructive, not only to the Chancellor, so he and the provost know, and the CFO know how much money they're going to have to spend, but I think it's very helpful to each of the schools to be able to take a look at priorities and what works in the schools and what may not be working so well. I do want to say, though, that it would be my guess and that there's going to be some hard choices that may have to be made in terms of budgetary actions. I know that the Chancellor and the CFO, the Vice Chancellor, Nate Knuffman, they're working very hard to meet all the requests that within reason that can be met. But hard choices are just frankly going to have to be made. And not everybody's going to get what they want when they want, but this board has a tremendous amount of confidence in the budgetary process and particularly how it's been done. I want to, on behalf of the board, want to thank the Chancellor and again, Vice Chancellor Knuffman and your team, Nate, and the Provost and his team for the work they've been doing. I think it's really speaks to the fiscal responsibility. At this time, I also want to, I've got one other thing I want to talk about, but before I do that, I want to recognize Trustee Allie Ray McCullen for a brief presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you all will recall, at our last meeting, we approved a resolution thanking Sampson's 105-year-old Tar Heel alum for the support and work he had done over the years. I, along with some of our Board of Visitors members went to see him prior to Christmas, and it really delighted him. The chancellor sent a bag of Carolina memorabilia in it. One thing was a cap. Mr. George at 105 immediately put the cap on and says, "I'll wear it tonight during the ball game." Somebody said, "George, I didn't know it was a ball game." He said, "Oh yeah," told us who we were playing. Somebody said, "What time?" He said, 7 o'clock. So he wore it and we won the ball game. We got real good coverage in our local paper. I was delighted about that. And there's been a lot of comment. There's a lot of goodwill for our university because of things like this. And Mr. Chancellor, Mr. George would really like for you to go see him. And any members of the board who ever come through Sampson, give me a call and I'll line it up where you can go by and tell him hello. He really appreciates it and you will be so impressed with him. And I have given, I think, all the trustees a copy of the newspaper, which I want you to keep. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee McCollum. So I want to also say and start off, it's unfortunate, but a lot of Americans are losing faith in our institutions of higher education. There's poll data that indicates that over the past several years, there's a growing gap between those who agree that higher education has a positive effect on our country and those who believe higher education has a negative effect on our country. At Carolina, we believe higher education is essential to moving our country forward. We cannot dismiss concerns, however, about the eroding confidence in higher education. Nationally, public universities are appropriated over $100 billion a year in state appropriated dollars. They are also recipients of more than $225 billion in federal student loans and grants flowing into higher education every year. Large swaths of taxpayers who essentially and inevitably pay this bill believe that instead of easing the political resentments of American society, sometimes our universities often stroke them. Rather than offering students the chance to hone their skills of reasoned deliberation, there are campuses that have the perception that they are grounds for a cancel culture. And that is not the case here at Carolina, and we don't want that to be the case here. But a decade's worth of data demonstrates that students, and we've heard evidence here, do self-center themselves. As trustees of America's oldest public university, we do take these problems seriously and have chosen action. When the university was founded in 1789, the state's legislature met to discharge, quote, the indispensable duty of every legislature to fit the rising generation for an honorable discharge of the social duties of life through the strictest attention to their education. We believe public universities today still have this distinctive mission to prepare young people for responsibilities of citizenship and the demands of the workforce. Now, clearly, our society has evolved over the years, but we believe that public universities, particularly the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, has evolved and has taken its rightful place with a special obligation to serve the public good. In August, we endorsed the Calvin Report, a seminal statement on the need for the university proper itself to remain neutral on political issues. We also reemphasized our support of the Chicago Statement on freedom of expression, following the lead of our faculty council. Yesterday, this body discussed a commitment to civil discourse amongst ourselves. Appointed trustees worked closely with our student body president, who also aptly serves as a trustee in addition to her hard work as the student body president, on a framework for civil discourse amongst ourselves. The work and the dialogue that was evidenced yesterday during the committee meeting, I think was fantastic. We've developed and are in the process of finalizing a voluntary commitment, asking each of us to act with, and the language is still in the works. And that's where with a level of civility and decorum, and however that language finally works out, we'll see. But I believe this is leading by example. We heard briefly also from our provost, and I've been made aware and have seen the proposal for a school of civic life and leadership. That school's core mission would be to develop both the capacities and knowledge necessary for healthy democratic citizenship. The School of Civic Life and Leadership's curriculum would be anchored in the study of core texts with particular attention to the foundations of the American experiment and all that comes with it. The school would create space for free speech, a culture of civil and open inquiry in which we as a university and faculty members and other students would recognize members of political outgroups as friends to learn from rather than foes to vanquish. The university would recruit additional faculty to bring fresh perspectives and approaches. We would also look to our own faculty ranks who have fantastic resumes and world-class credentials in the areas of philosophy and American history and world history. The curriculum would invite students to develop democratic competencies and key virtues such as intellectual humility, curiosity, charity, and self-criticism as they seek the truth about the fundamental questions of social and political life, economics, ethics, religions, and aesthetics. Students would develop the capacities for deliberation and debate as they bring into critical conversation different viewpoints. I believe now is the time to keep up the momentum. The Board of Trustees at this university, our chancellor, our provost, our faculty has led in this arena and has led previously and leads today. It was a simple resolution from the Board of Trustees that sparked our program for public discourse that has served as a national model. It has been an energizing program. It has been an engine for free speech and has served as a national example. I'm going to pass out a proposal that I have that this board support by way of a resolution, the development of the School of Civic Life and Leadership. We will place the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill as a national leader on this important topic. This is an area where we can really be a leader and set an example for the rest of the nation and for all public universities across our country and throughout the world. I'm going to pass it out, let board members take a look at it, and I'm going to bring it up for discussion at the end of the open part of our meeting and look to have a discussion on that. I think this has been an area where this board has led with our resolutions. This board led just yesterday with the discourse that we had amongst ourselves about committing to having civil discourse. And this is an opportunity for us to gain and keep the momentum that we have as a university and a leader in the nation. So with that, I would like to turn it over to our esteemed chancellor for his remarks. Mr. Chancellor. Are we going to do, I'm first today? Oh, do you want to go first, Elijah? Why don't you go? I'm sorry. I was reading wrong. Look, I'm going so fast. I couldn't read. So first of all, before you, and I don't have this written down in my speech, but I do want to thank you for all your hard work as student body president. You know, when you serve on the board and you get to serve with student body presidents who also serve as trustees, we as trustees, this is a working board. When I first was appointed to the board, Haywood Cochran, former member of the board, called me and said, this is a working board. And it is. We do a lot of work, and I've talked about that. And you've done a lot of work on behalf of the board, and it's got to be really hard to schedule it with your class load and with your work as student body president. But I want you to know that I really have appreciated working with you. And yesterday's engagement was fantastic. And so I'm going to recognize you now for your remarks.
Hi, everybody. Hope you're all doing well today. So just to start, we had ASG last weekend. This was not a virtual ASG meeting, and we're getting out of those more and more as we move away from like the time we're just not allowed to all be in enclosed spaces. ASG was at A&T this year. It was my first time ever being on their campus, and it was an amazing experience. I think something that I hear a lot in this space is a desire for us to like look to institutions that are maybe doing things better, just looking at our peers to see what they're doing well and like what we can improve upon, but also bringing the things that we're doing really well into that space. And so it was really wonderful getting to connect with the student body president at A&T and other members of their student government, and just getting to learn more in that ASG space. There were two bills that I thought were really cool that passed in ASG this weekend, one of which is to allow voting in virtual meetings, not just in person. I think the old bylaws for ASG before we passed this resolution or passed this bill said that you are not allowed to have your vote count unless you're in the room. But now that we have ASG meetings where like the entire conference will be virtual, it just doesn't make sense for people to not be able to vote. So that's one thing we changed. And then also passed a resolution calling on all universities in the UNC system to adjust student worker pay to be in alignment with inflation and cost of attendance. Basically just saying if our tuition goes from being the really like valuable and reasonable amount that it is right now, if it gets higher, that's probably a reflection of inflation and other pressures that we're experiencing in our economy. And so thinking that we should all be committed to ensuring that students are able to afford to exist in a space like that if they work on our campuses. Our Distinguished Lectureship Committee has officially convened, and that's been a really wonderful experience. We've got Dr. Cox on that committee, which I'm really excited about. Dr. Susan King is one of the people who's working. I didn't think she was going to email me back, so it was really great that she decided to participate as well. And I'm excited to let you guys know who that final speaker is and to invite you to that lectureship once we have our dates finalized. We collaborated, we being the undergraduate student government, with GPSG, the Union, Campus Y, and the Carolina Cupboard on a push to quantify and eliminate food insecurity on campus. That's a project that I'm really excited about. And right now, I think we have a lot of amazing resources for our students, but they're just splintered all over campus. And so trying to find a way to make a system that just makes more sense. As one really small example, if you were to go to the Carolina Cupboard in Avery, there are tons of toiletries and like vital items for students in that space that are not food. But I think almost no students know that those items are there. And so something as simple as making sure that our students know where they can go to get the resources they need is our main goal with this. We are aiming to increase voter turnout this year. We've got an election coming up in a couple of weeks, which I'm really excited about. I know that we've talked about our voter turnout last year. I believe that my administration/campaign was able to increase voter turnout by about 4 or 5%, which is great. But even that, I think, is about maybe 10 or 14,000 students or something like that. And there are a ton of students on our campus. And so the Joint Governance Council, obviously in collaboration with our grad student senate and our undergrad senate, passed a reform of sorts of our election process right now that added, I believe, 3 days of early voting for students. And so we're really excited for how that will affect our system. And then also introduce some changes to the election finance procedure so that students can have the ability to spend more, but not box out students who maybe are not in like the highest like economic bracket on our campus. I'm working with the Morehead Cain Foundation on an event that they're having this weekend. They are bringing student body presidents from 1960 to 2022, 2023 to campus this weekend for like some panels and things I think are going to be really fun. Going to have an opportunity for my executive board and cabinet to get to meet them. I think it'll just be really great to get to hear some of that history and bring that knowledge to our campus, especially with our next election right around the corner. The grad students and undergrads were recently featured in a Daily Tar Heel article just highlighting the cost of housing in Chapel Hill. And so really want to emphasize the issue of affordable housing and say that as a student who pays way too much money to live here. And so I hope that's something that we can talk about more in the future. Dr. Donald Planey, I do believe I'm saying his last name right, of the GPSG City and Regional Planning Department, completed a survey on the economic impact of grad programs on our state. And we're hoping to be able to bring that report to this board soon by our meeting in March, if possible. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that the chancellor, I believe, charged our grad and professional student government president, Theodore, with preparing a report on the graduate time to degree. And as far as like what I've heard about that report so far, it's mostly good news. And the way that Theodore wrote this out, despite a dearth of public data from our system peers, and Carolina is one of the most transparent schools in publishing time to degree data for grad students. And so really just want to highlight that amazing part of the work that we do. The grad and professional student government has given out more than half of its travel award budgets, which I think is really amazing. I just want to make sure that those resources are being put to use. And so glad to hear that. And hosted as well a panel with Barbara Fouché from the Carrboro Town Council, the mayor of Carrboro, the mayor pro tem of Chapel Hill, and Michael Parker from Chapel Hill Town Council to speak with a group of graduate and undergraduate students and just hear about like governance in our community right now. If anybody has questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you, President Van, for your leadership and for your remarks. Chair Bullock, thank you as well for all you're doing for us. And before I start my remarks, I want to just recognize a few folks, some new members of our leadership team. But before I do that, I want to ask Governor Mike Williford from the Board of Governors to please stand. And I just want to thank you for being with us yesterday and today. Governor Williford is a 1979 Carolina grad and a staunch supporter of the UNC system. He also earned his law degree from North Carolina Central University and is a partner down in Fayetteville at Williford, Bullock, and Frangakis. And I just want to thank you, Governor Williford, for your support of your alma mater, but also most certainly of the UNC system, and really appreciate you being with us the past few days. I want to also recognize, as we've been doing, Provost and I trying to get some of our new leadership members before you at these meetings. And I'm not sure if Giselle Corby-Smith is with us, but I do just want to welcome her. You will get to see a lot more of Giselle. You know, she's an amazing faculty member here at Carolina, but she's our new Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs that the Provost appointed recently. She's a keen and distinguished professor of medicine, director of the Center for Health Equity Studies, and the Associate Provost for Rural Initiatives. And she's going to work to advance our faculty and strengthen our academic community. I think it was an outstanding appointment. And we'll get Giselle back to one of these meetings so that you can have a chance to meet her. I want to also welcome, as I did yesterday briefly, our new Vice Chancellor for Development, Michael Andreasen, who began his role just this past Monday. And I'm going to ask Mike to come up the podium and say a few words. But Mike is a seasoned leader, comes to us from the University of Oregon, brings more than 30 years of fundraising experience, and he believes strongly in the mission of public universities. And I'm just confident that Mike's going to continue to engage our supporters, our alumni, and to help build our fundraising success coming off of this current campaign. So Mike, if you'd like to just say a few words, I know that it's been a busy first week. He texted me last Thursday. I was at the women's basketball game when we beat Duke. I was sitting next to Bubba. And I said, look, Mike texted, he just landed in Chapel Hill after about a 5-day journey. And he said he's not packing that. He's here to stay because that's a long journey. So Mike, welcome.
Well, thank you. It's really great to be here. I want to just say a few comments, but on day 4, I'm still learning more than one can imagine. It's been a bit of a fire hose experience. I want to thank the board for your vote last month and your confidence in inviting me to join this team. I want to thank the Chancellor for his invitation to join the development office at Carolina. Also want to acknowledge David Ruth, who's just been so gracious in this past 6 weeks to welcome me and help me with the transition. We have much to be proud of. Jeff Hill did a great job, I think, yesterday of really highlighting an extraordinary campaign, rarefied air, $5 billion. I'm amazed, I'm daunted. I'm inspired by what you all have done. And I think it leads us to what we might do next. You know, when I think about that kind of investment, that is a huge vote of confidence by your donor community, our donor community, in the core mission of this university. And we have a responsibility to thank those donors and to continue to inspire them to keep giving and to find new donors to support our great university. I will just take one moment and say, I'm also a little worried when you have that kind of success. It's upon all of us to ensure that we continue to make the case that philanthropy is an integral part of our university. Being a member of the AAU, which we talked about yesterday, these great institutions in the country, being the oldest public university, we have a responsibility to bring academic excellence to bear in our community, our society, our state, but also to make sure we remain affordable for our students. And that dual purpose of excellence and access, I think, is the great mission for Carolina. Philanthropy is going to help continue to make that promise and that commitment a reality for the citizens of the state and for the region and for our country. The last thing I would say is, from the very first conversation I had with Kevin, I was convinced that this university is on the move. You're doing great big things and grand challenges, and this board is going to help us lead that effort going forward. And we talked, Chair Bullock talked about the importance of the conversation around higher education in the country. And I think we have an opportunity to show that discovery in the lab can move quickly to treatment in the clinic. The discovery in the library can help prepare a student for a great career. How can we accelerate that time of impact? And I think philanthropy has a part of that solution. So thank you for inviting me to join your team. I look forward to working together. We'll come back after a few months. We're going to look in the development office about what we can do better, where we can make better improvements. Think about that ROI. That's so important on the investment we make. And I look forward to working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Well, we've had a great start to the beginning of the spring semester here at Carolina, and I spent some time over the holiday break thinking about where we wanted to be focused, where I wanted to be focused, this upcoming semester. And so I want to share some of the ways in which we're going to move our university forward in the coming months. I want to say a little bit about graduate education, a little about career advancement, more about free speech and some of the things Chair Bullock mentioned, and how we must remain committed to serving our state and some of the work that Anita Brown Graham has been working on through Carolina Cross 100. So to start off with graduate student opportunities, I'm going to call them. On January 1st, we implemented the single largest increase in university history for minimum graduate student stipends. This is something we've been hearing. But I want to say that I want to thank this board for your support, because you heard loud and clear the importance of this, supported some of the funding that we put aside last year for this, and we needed to do it again this year. And I know I speak for many on our campus, the importance of this commitment to these incredible students. And the provost and I, we have experience in this space. I was thinking this morning, Chris, we have over 50 years collectively, the two of us, in mentoring graduate students. And I don't want to speak for you, but I can tell you that my own research career as an academic here would have been nothing without those graduate students that helped to support the research enterprise. And so we are grateful. And I know Chris we still mentor graduate students in the roles that we're in. So I want to just say that we're excited about this. At the same time that we are increasing stipends, we're beginning the planning for a new graduate academic village on the site of the current Spangler building on Raleigh Road. This is going to involve obviously a lot of work with working closely alongside the board. We're beginning stakeholder meetings on campus to figure out what this space might ultimately look like. But we know that it can be a catalyst for providing research and innovation space for our graduate students. And we have to provide them with the tools and the resources that they need to succeed as the future academics, leaders, and inventors that we know they can be, to carry that Carolina flag with them as they leave here to go out to do amazing things to solve the grand challenges of our time. So this space is also going to allow us to look at how we can configure, renovate, and rethink some of the other residential hall spacing on our campus as we look at perhaps repurposing Beatty Hill, which is where our current graduate students, many of them live. So more to come on that, but I think this is an exciting opportunity for us. On career advancement, I charged a new working group just last week on this topic, and the goal of this is really to consider the essential career and personal development experiences that our Carolina students need beyond their Carolina experience. And it's comprised of a devoted group of professors, administrators, alumni, current students, and Board of Trustees members. I want to thank Trustee Ramsey White, Trustee Perrin Jones for agreeing to serve on that committee. We charged the group last week, and I know that you're going to play an important role as we conduct this important work. The first part of this will be to conduct a survey, looking to see what is happening currently on our campus so that we can build on the good work that is already happening. But we're not just focused on students. This career development initiative that's nested within Carolina Next Innovations for Public Good is also focused on promoting opportunities for faculty and staff. We have over 9,000 staff members on our campus, from lab supervisors to administrative assistants to program managers. And these incredible colleagues make it possible for us to carry out our mission of research, teaching, and service every day on our campus. And we don't want to lose the talent pool that we have here. We have got to find opportunities for upward mobility where they see opportunities to move into leadership roles, and also that they know their voices are important. So as many of you have read, we are in the midst of economic shifts and changes in the labor market across the nation, especially here in the Triangle. Yet we must do everything, as I've said, to try to retain these incredible Tar Heels. We are beginning a process to implement a formal leadership development and organization planning process that will be unique. And it's one that we've been talking about for several months. And this is going to help us to develop that pipeline for leadership growth from within for our staff and our faculty. And so we will keep the board updated on this important work alongside the work of the committee that we charged on career development for our students. Third, on Monday, I will charge a new committee on academic freedom and free speech. We want to find ways to address the issues facing our society in a way that ensures everyone's voice on our campus can be respectfully heard. And I think this falls into alignment with the resolution that was discussed yesterday by the board. We want to shine a light on our research expertise so that we can inform policymakers, legislators, and others to make sound decisions to move society forward. And I think that's the role of a leading global public research university, to provide that input and to be sure that everyone's voice is at the table. This committee is going to advise our leadership team on these critical issues and give ideas for advancing academic freedom and articulating free speech norms and best practices for our entire campus community. Fourth, Carolina Cross 100. I will be bringing Anita Brown Graham back. And as you know, when she stands at that podium, there's a lot of excitement in the room. Anita, as you know, has led this work to reach out beyond Chapel Hill across the state, working towards their goal of reducing the number of North Carolina youth without meaningful employment by 10% by the year 2025. And this is, I had a chance to participate in the workshop 2.5 months ago, that Anita and her team had, and they are leading forums for community teams involved in this work now across the state. And we'll be sending details out to our Board of Trustees on the next forum, because Anita would really she really wants to engage this board in that work. And if we're out in a community where you can get to easily, she would welcome you to come to be part of those conversations. So that program is also supporting health outcomes in 22 counties in Eastern North Carolina. And again, she's just doing incredible work. For future programs, she's looking at topics such as responding to declining youth mental health, a national crisis, but certainly one we're focused on here locally in North Carolina, and helping to support small businesses recovering and exploring affordable housing options, something that I know President Van is, as she mentioned earlier, is passionate about. And so I know that she, again, wants the board's feedback on these initiatives. Finally, in the next few days, we will be welcoming the members of the class of 2027 who applied for early action. They come to our campus excited about their futures and ready to learn with the best faculty in the world. We had over 60,000 applicants. As I look at Rachel Feldman, I believe that is the case, and up again 7-8% roughly. She doesn't want me to share these, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10% above last year's applicant. Okay.
8,900 applicants, were up about 10% in North Carolinians and just over 1.5 thousand.
Okay, thank you. There we go. We'll give you the final details at the next meeting, but this will very likely be one of the largest, if not the largest, incoming class in the university's history. And our goal here is to prepare those students for that future. And I'm grateful to you for your commitment to this endeavor. And I know that this incoming class will be one of the best that we've seen, and that it's an incredible talent pool out there. So with that, I want to again just thank you for all your support. I'm going to invite our speaker. Every meeting, we invite a faculty speaker to share some of the exciting work being done here at Carolina. And I want to welcome Elizabeth Engelhardt to the podium, Senior Associate Dean for Fine Arts and Humanities, to present on Southern Futures alongside her colleagues. There are some seats in the front row, Elizabeth, that if you want to use, but I just want to say something about Southern Futures. This is a partnership with the College of Arts and Sciences, University Libraries, Carolina Performing Arts, and the Center for the Study of the American South. And I have enjoyed supporting it. I don't want to say too much because I've asked Elizabeth, who's been leading this effort for several years, to kick it off. But I have enjoyed supporting this initiative as Dean of the College when it was launched, and certainly now as Chancellor. And I think this is just a really important way, one of many ways in which we shine a spotlight on the important work of our researchers to support and drive opportunity in our region. So, Dr. Engelhardt, take it away.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, trustees. It's such a pleasure for us to be here with you. We actually thought we would start off with a very short video for you from our partners at Carolina Performing Arts.
My name is Rhiannon Giddens, and I'm a Southern Futures Artist in Residence with Carolina Performing Arts. As part of my research residency, I'm looking at materials at Wilson Special Collections Library. The thing about Omar's story that really grabbed me was the fact that it complicates our understanding of what the enslaved person's life was like. The idea of this monolithic enslaved experience is like just false. There were so many people coming from different areas.
There's a superstition in performing arts. When the dress rehearsal goes perfectly, the premiere, that's a disaster. It's the tech went flawlessly in the dress rehearsal. That's why the show is not going to
If I may, while Mark's working on this, and since Allison Friedman just spoke, I just want to congratulate you on an incredible job that you're doing. Hong Kong Ballet on this past Friday, this past weekend. I was there Friday evening. It was a packed house. I think the first time that we've sold out Memorial Hall since COVID. Hong Kong Ballet performing Romeo and Juliet without a word spoken, but to dance and music. It was incredible. So thank you for all you're doing.
going to say the partnership between arts and athletics at UNC is really exciting, and we're grateful for our partnership with our colleagues in athletics. More to come.
All right. I know that Mark's got this now. There's the paste. Here's the click.
There we go.
Here's the video.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Mark.
My name is Rhiannon Giddens, and I'm a Southern Futures Artist in Residence with Carolina Performing Arts. As part of my research residency, I'm looking at materials at Wilson Special Collections Library. The thing about Omar's story that really grabbed me was the fact that it complicates our understanding of what the enslaved person's life was like. The idea of this monolithic enslaved experience is like just false. There were so many people coming from different areas with different life experiences, with different talents, with different skills, with different knowledges. The fact that we have Omar's materials is amazing. When you consider how fragile documents are, how little regarded documents by people who were enslaved were, without his words, we have nothing. It's really miraculous that we have his materials in North Carolina, not that far from where he spent most of the rest of his life. All the more reason to put something as big as an opera, behind this.
All right. So I appreciate Kevin's introduction of me, and indeed I could introduce myself to you as a keen and eminent professor of Southern Studies, as the Senior Associate Dean for Fine Arts and Humanities, but I thought I would introduce myself to you in a different way today, which is as a product of the North Carolina public school system. I began kindergarten in Western North Carolina. I graduated from high school from the public school system there. I was raised in a Western North Carolina Appalachian community. My best teacher, Tom Orr, was a graduate of this university with degrees in both English and education. My godmother, my second best mentor, was self-educated after grade 8. Her name was Imogene Aker. She gave me my first novel by a North Carolina writer. I carry those community networks with me when I walk into a room. I answer to them. We are each other's responsibilities. And it's why I believe so much in the network we've created here at UNC called Southern Futures. As the leading institution for Southern studies in the world for 100 years, UNC-Chapel Hill has a responsibility to lead in a region facing transformative change. So bridging UNC's College of Arts and Sciences, the university libraries, and Carolina Performing Arts, Southern Futures is a collaborative network for students, scholars, creators, and community leaders doing extraordinary work to reimagine the American South. This is a powerful way for UNC to fulfill its mission of service and responsibility to the state and to the region. We're grounded in the arts and humanities. We seek a future where our communities thrive. We're going to spend the next few minutes introducing you to a few of our key voices. You've heard now from Allison Friedman, our Executive and Artistic Director of Carolina Performing Arts, and the works that CPA is doing for Southern Futures. Next, I'm going to yield the podium here to one of my best partners, in Wilson Library, our curator of the Southern Folklife Collection and interim music librarian, Steve Weiss. More personally, I had a fantastic job elsewhere. And when UNC said, would you like to come back here? One of the reasons why it was such an easy and immediate yes is the opportunity to be 30 yards from Wilson Library. You heard Rhiannon Giddens articulating that. You'll hear Steve talk about the power of that institution on our campus. Steve?
Thank you, Elizabeth, and good morning, everyone. So the collections at university libraries are the bedrock of Carolina's leadership position in Southern studies. For students, scholars, and residents of the American South, the Wilson Special Collections Library is a destination, an indisputable partner in activating the past to create new futures for the region. At the libraries, the Southern Futures Initiative provides a framework for ensuring the excellence of our collections. And last year, the Keenan Trust invested in that excellence with a $1.5 million endowment to name the position of curator of the Southern Historical Collection. Through research and arts fellowships, we're also fostering an intellectual and creative community that brings scholars from across the country to Carolina. Since launching these fellowships in 2018, we've made 109 awards to students and scholars from over 60 universities. These awards have been possible entirely with philanthropic support. At the same time, we work in and with communities across the South to leverage our expertise in support of their memory keeping and preservation goals. So, a brief story. In March of 2019, the Highlander Research and Education Center, a social justice training school and cultural center based in Newmarket, Tennessee, was the victim of arson, which destroyed their main office building where decades of irreplaceable archives had been temporarily stored. UNC Library has a long-standing partnership with Highlander to preserve and provide access to their audiovisual archives, which include the earliest recordings of the song "We Shall Overcome." The library quickly responded to the emergency, transporting the audiovisual archives, which were thankfully safe in a separate building at the center. Once at UNC, the extensive film, video, and audio materials were described, digitized, and made available online by staff with expert knowledge skilled in archives, conservation, and digital production. This work illustrates how the library leverages its expertise and resources to help save community-based cultural treasures and share them with the world. Now I'd like to turn the presentation over to Corbin Davis, who's the Executive Associate for Southern Futures at the Center for the Study of the American South. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you all for inviting us here today. Like Steve said, my name is Corbin Davis, and I'm a staff person here at UNC-Chapel Hill. I'm also a proud graduate and happy to be a Tar Heel, and it is my dream job to work here. So I'm very excited to be here today. My job is to provide support for Southern Future's wide range of collaborations on campus, from helping a professor host a final exhibit event from students in their first year seminar about North Carolina Black feminists, to building a website for a community-led project in Old Fort, North Carolina. I support the people that make a difference in the place I call home. Since 2019, Southern Futures has connected with 68 different graduate students across 16 different departments and schools with summer research support, professional development opportunities, and research opportunities, sorry. So one of the projects I'm most excited about and excited to share with you today is our Southern Futures Fellows program. This is a pathway to life-changing experiences and mentorship for the next generation of leaders at Carolina. We are in the first year of our program, where each fellow receives $5,000 in summer funding to conduct mentored research, create an artistic project, or partner with a community over a summer. Last fall, we welcomed our first 20 students to campus. We received 6,722 applications to the program. I have been very busy this year. I've already read 240 applications, so there is a tremendous interest in what we're doing. These students are high achievers with a track record of remarkable accomplishments, service, and creativity. They are talented storytellers. They're optimists that know change takes a lot of hard work, and they're problem solvers that want to keep compassion and integrity at the center of what they do. These students are committed to the possibility of a better future for the communities they call home. In our first cohort, the students come from 17 different counties across the state. I dream, as the years progress, that we will eventually have students representing every county in the state. These students are dreaming big. They want to be doctors and lawyers and diplomats and filmmakers and teachers. They want to change their part of the world. My job is to help put the right people in the room with those students to help them think, dream, heal, trust, and connect for the larger purpose of reimagining the future of our region and their place in it. I'm excited to go ahead and turn over the presentation to one of those people, Tony Royal, who is an incredible graduate student in the Department of American Studies, a former staff member and colleague in the departments, and is now working as a mentor to the undergraduate students. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tony Royal, as Corbin mentioned. I am a third-year PhD student in American Studies. I'm excited to be here today. I came to UNC in 2011 as an undergrad. I was one of 2 students from my hometown that came to this institution. This was really daunting at first, but what made it a lot easier for me were the people that were around who were able to connect me and keep me motivated and going throughout those years. As time went on in undergrad, I decided I wanted to give back to those same leaders that I saw that affected me, give back to the student body as well. So I did. I was an orientation leader, a resident advisor, a campus tour guide person. And then I graduated in 2015, went away for my master's degree and came back here, as Corbin mentioned, to work as staff in the departments of English and American Studies, the 2 different departments there, because I wanted to be involved in student services no matter what. That's kind of what led me to Southern Futures today. Their mission, which Professor Engelhardt mentioned, that inspired my desire to help students adjust and ultimately thrive on campus, especially in the arts and humanities. Although I didn't know what research could look like in those fields, I was a history major and an Italian major in undergrad. I'm really excited to see and to help train students today to get started earlier, as early as they can in their first year here at Carolina. My role in Southern Futures is essentially a connector of sorts. I host office hours, plan and share events, and coordinate with their research and class projects. I think about this all in terms of mushrooms, and follow me here. This is thankful for this former grad students from Gillings School of Public Health who was talking about the creativeness of mushrooms. They're very fascinating, and I use them as a metaphor in how we in Southern Futures understand interdisciplinary research. So mushrooms are individual, and they are also part of a larger environment. Their root systems will connect to other root systems from mushrooms and to other plant and trees around. And these root systems will attach to one another to help feed this own environment of symbiosis that's going on. These connections will spread throughout space and time, so you can find the earlier tracks of them early in life and up to present day in the future. And that's the work that we do as Southern Futures with our undergrad students, is that we welcome them into this growing network across campus, starting off with us as a foundation, UNC as a foundation. It branches off to them as students, and they can take that work back to their own local communities as well. We're actively creating and supporting networks that are then able to grow and be sustained in their own way throughout the South. The goal is not to remain insular. We have the opportunities here to affect change in multiple areas with different facets of research. As we move forward, the current Southern Futures Fellows Cohort Network will have 20 individual students that will then pass it on and on and on and on. The first semester that they're here, I provide one-on-one time to listen to and learn about the students' interests and visions, while also sharing events that happen around campus, which then allows them to be exposed to people on campus doing the research that they're interested in doing. Their second semester, I work as a GRC, a graduate research coordinator, in a research skills building class to learn how to design a research project in the arts and humanities. And during the summer semester of their choosing, they will take all this knowledge that they have, put together a research proposal, and take it back to whatever community they decide they want to do research in. Some examples of projects currently in the works include a student interested in doing food justice work at their local school system in the community. Another student is wanting to conduct something similar to the Black and Blue tour that we have here on campus back in their hometown. Another student is trying to imagine what an environmentally just future with food and energy will look like in small towns. And lastly, there's another student who's trying to take their photography and studio art background into documenting how activism can work. One of our fellows is here today to share a little bit about his story and how his experience in Southern Futures has impacted himself now and his future work. And welcome, Augustine.
I want to thank you, Tony, for that introduction, and I want to thank the board for giving me the chance to speak today. As Tony mentioned, I'm Agustin Orozco, and I'm one of the Southern Futures Fellows. My journey to Carolina was a bit untraditional. I came down one week to visit my sister, who was a student here, and attended to the Center of Latinx, or the Carolina Latinx Center, for a cookout. Being there, I was convinced that I had to come here. Meeting with the faculty, advisors, and more specifically, the students, I discovered that this was somewhere where I wanted to be. This space that existed for people like myself was something I had never been exposed to before. So as soon as I got home that day, I began my transfer application. When I opened the acceptance letter, I was over the moon. The excitement grew as I had been invited to participate in the Southern Futures Fellows program. I couldn't wait to get on campus and get started. Community development has always been something vital to me. I remember in high school, me and my friends started clubs and held events that focused and championed Latinx identity and gave Latinx students a group to be part of. We saw the firsthand struggles of Latinx students in schools, and we wanted to do our part to help. This background prepared me to use the resources shared to me by the Southern Futures and to make a communal impact. Southern Futures is giving me the training to use what I learned in the classroom to grow and develop my community. My community is the immigrants who are finding their way in the US. We lean on one another as we navigate these new spaces and help one another when we are in need. I can achieve a lot on my own, but I quickly discovered that I cannot do everything and I am not an expert in everything. Walking to the center of the study of the South, I found and saw collaboration that took place and showed the strength there was in collaborative action. I knew for me to achieve my goals of social change in my community, I had to work alongside my cohort. With all of us developing, our expertise in different areas, our network is becoming an interdisciplinary space with a focus on bringing change. This network is much larger than just the cohort. It is the events and the people we meet along the way. Last October, I had the privilege to going to an event featuring Tracy Dion, a UNC alum and an award-winning author, in which she spoke about her book, Legendborn. It was different. I sat there mesmerized by the detail of the world the story was set in. The settings were clear illustrations in my mind. Meeting her was a life-changing experience. It showed me the context of issues is vital to understand the root causes. I dream of bridging the gap in technology accessibility for immigrant communities, but that is only possible if I can understand why the access is not there in the first place. The digital humanities have given me a unique lens to understand technology through the humanities and unlock my understanding of how people and technology interact. Southern Futures is a program centered around community, helping it, building it, but most importantly, creating it. The cohort and I are ready to start creating these networks that will be utilized to bring forth social change and leave a positive impact wherever we go. Now,
Gus is a hard act to follow. That's a quick introduction to some of the many collaborations in the Southern Futures Network. It's a unique asset that's poised to reach across this university. I'd like you to imagine Carolina putting hundreds of Gus's, Tony's, Rhiannon's, leaders of the South's future into the world. Students, scholars, artists who have spent time in our libraries, who have learned to listen, to create, to imagine on behalf of, alongside, with, and for our wider communities. Thank you.
Any questions from board members? Trustee Davis.
We were able to give away 20 fellowships in our first year. And that was an achievement. We had been told that when you launch a program like this, often you're lucky if you get 10 or 12 in your first year. And we were pleased that not only did we get so many applications, but also we were able to convince all 20 of those students to come to our campus. So that's our beginning cohort. We'll have another cohort this year that's about the same size. Because we are organizing as a network, we can scale. We need support from our donors, from our friends. We need to think about how to do that in a smart and wise way, but there's not a limit on that. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other trustees with questions or comments? Teresa, trustee Artis Neal.
I was just going to say, Dr. Engelhardt always brings such passion. She just draws you in. And I've just been very pleased to have been able to interact the few times we have, just see that in action.
Yeah,
Can I go? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that today's presentation combined with what we saw yesterday in strategic initiatives around the importance of the humanities here at Carolina. I realize that Southern Futures goes beyond the humanities, but I think it just speaks to the importance that we place on this. It creates amazing opportunities for our students at Carolina. And as Elizabeth said, it draws incredible talent here because you wouldn't be here if it weren't for initiatives like this and the resources that we have. So thank you.
I think this is truly an example of what we've talked about at the board level and in the macro level of how the delivery system of higher education is changing and evolving. And this provides that platform for the experiential education of why students want to come to Chapel Hill, interact, collaborate, have hands-on experience of not only learning, but as part of their learning experience, beginning to change the world in their own unique way. And you've got some great examples in PhD candidates and undergraduate students right here today. So to me, that's what this also speaks to, is the rationale for continuing this great experiment in public education as an experience, not just, reading words on a page or taking a test. This is what Carolina is all about.
I couldn't have said that better, Chairman Bullock. Thank you.
Dr. Engelhardt, real quick, and this goes to Allison as well, whomever is in charge of this, what I'm about to ask. And I was going to come to you in person, but I want to ask it in public because it might put more pressure on you to fulfill this request. Clementine Hunter is probably the greatest folk artist from our country, African-American woman from Louisiana. And Francis Minois was her mentor. He's the one that gave her the paints and got her started in her career, and was kind of the one that guided her along the way. And his library is in Wilson, or his collection is in Wilson. And I would love to see a story similar to what we just saw Rihanna do on that. That's it. Now it's public.
Trustee Davis, you had one other thing.
Two questions, two more on my turn. One, I would thank you for the emphasis on the importance of the Southern Historical Collection, local collection, rare books, North Carolina collection, our special collections that I said yesterday of what make our university libraries so critical, and it draws people from around the world to do research there. And we have to cherish our special collections, continue to expand and draw them, continue to dive in and dig in and find other stories like it. So I'm grateful to all of those in the past who have collected to make it what it is today. And I think it highlights why it's so important that we continue to broadly collect moving forward. Because we don't know today what will be important to historians in the future. Second, Dr. Engelhardt mentioned it, but she writes a lot about Southern food. And her next book is coming out in the fall. And it is about the importance of boarding houses in the way that food has developed in the South. And interestingly, James Beard's, I know you know who that is, Malcolm. James Beard's mother ran a boarding house, and that's where he became interested in food. So there's a lot of interesting stuff. Excited about your book coming out this fall.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Patel.
Fellow member of this meeting, you felt at once that this is where you needed to be. We hear a lot that, maybe the environment is an inclusive environment, there's all of these things. You hear that sentiment. I was there, I was part of it. But it's still that we are all accepted. We all have a place here. That is very refreshing to hear. You don't hear that. It's always this and never this. So thank you.
Anybody else? Great. All right. Thank you very much. Let's take a 10-minute break.
Yeah, they're there.
As possible. At this point, I'm going to call on Chairman of the Audit, Compliance, and Risk Management Committee, Trustee Marty Kotis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For trustees, this report covers items discussed during
The committee heard national update and all also heard again security update regional integrity and one thing I'd like to point out, and I really wanted to compliment that on creative
they talked about student engagement and communication, and it's hard to sit in this room and not flash back to one of the last times I was here as a member of the Board of Governors, attending a meeting much like Mike Williford is. And I just wanted to talk about a couple of things, point of privilege on that. I'm sitting about where, or back a few feet would be about where Clayton Summers was. And you can imagine if you have a chair up against the wall there, kind of like staff is, with maybe a 3-foot gap, and a photographer is directly behind you taking a photo and it's clicking, you might turn around and look to see what it is. And I feel like the context of that, I wanted to make sure, I don't feel like it's been said, and I wanted to clear that up, that the context of that photo that continues to circulate around is when Clayton turns around to look at someone taking his photo up close, 3 feet or 2 feet behind him. And I think it also brings up a need for us to address this decorum pledge, where we, in a society, we agree to a set of rules, and that's what our police department is often enforcing. And I look back on that day, and I think there were various miscalculations and mistakes. And I'd like to remind this board, now that I'm on it, of a policy that we passed when I was on the Board of Governors, which covers protest and how they're to be handled. And there's a clear kind of expectation. And when that's deviated from, it results in a lot of problems, as we saw that day. But that was all I wanted to add as a personal privilege, just to clear that up for this photo that keeps circulating of Clayton, and how I think it's interesting that we're talking about civil discourse today in this room.
Thank you, Trustee Cotis. Like to call on Vice Chairman and John Pryor, also Chair of the Budget, Finance, and Infrastructure Committee.
Thank you, Chairman Bullock, and members of the committee and the board. This report covers items discussed during the Committee on Budget, Finance, and Infrastructure. In the meeting yesterday, January 25th, the committee considered and approved several spending authority requests, advanced planning spending authority requests, designer selection requests, and a demolition approval. Detailed information about each request is available in Board Effect. All of these items were approved by the board as part of the consent agenda this morning. Finally, the committee heard an informational request from the Vice Chancellor of Finance and Operations on the annual comprehensive financial report and a finance update, as well as a presentation regarding the School of Social Work's budget process from Dean Ramona Denby Brinson. And a lot of people have already acknowledged how impressed we were with that, but just we certainly did appreciate her remarks and the coordination with Vice Chancellor of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Trustee Pryor. At this time, I'll call on Trustee Perrin Jones, Chair of the Strategic Initiatives Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Bullock and Board of Trustees members, this report covers items discussed during the meeting of the Committee on Strategic Initiatives yesterday, January 25th. During our meeting, the committee received a presentation on the utility of the humanities from 3 of our distinguished faculty members: Lloyd Kramer, Professor of History and Director of Carolina Public Humanities; Hillary Lithgow, Teaching Professor of English; and Molly Worthen, Associate Professor of History and Faculty Director Program for the Program for Public Discourse. In addition, the committee discussed and approved a resolution presented by Trustees White, Van, and Davis, recognizing the board's commitment to collegiality in its work and interactions among the board and in the broader university community. Does everyone have a copy of, I just want to make sure that everyone has a copy and was comfortable with the final language? And if there are no further comments about it, then I think this would be a good opportunity for people to sign this pledge if they feel so inclined to do so. And
Do you have a copy, Chairman Jones, that you want to bring to each board member? Use as the original copy? Yeah, well, I was just asking if you had a copy. You got a fresh copy of it. Okay. All right. So is there a motion to approve that resolution? I have a motion on the floor from trustee Davis. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from trustee Brian. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. The resolution passes. Would you like to pass that around, or would you like to just come to each individual trustee? How would you like to do it? I'll leave that to your purview. Yes, sir. Can do alleyway. Okay, thank you.
I would like to.
Appreciate the board's support of this. What was the question? Appreciate the board's support of this. And the chancellor has also agreed to voluntarily commit to this endeavor. I think again, this board has led on this issue. Our chancellor has led on this issue. Our faculty has led on this issue. And so it's a good day. And a good piece of work. I want to thank trustee Jones, trustee White, trustee Gene Davis for your hard work on this, and trustee, student body president Talaja Van for her hard work on this. Appreciate it. Thank you. And do you have anything else?
No, that concludes my remarks.
All right. At this time, I'll call on the chair of the External Relations Committee, Allie Ray McCullen.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board of Trustee members. This report covers items discussed during the meeting of the Committee on External Relations yesterday, January 25th. Committee received a legislative update from Amy McConaughey, Director of State Affairs, and Roxana Boyd, Director of Federal Affairs. Committee also received an update regarding the closeout of the campaign for the Carolina from Jeff Hill, Associate Vice Chancellor from Campaign Management and Marketing. Thank you. This concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Trustee McCullen, and thanks for the update from Clinton on Mr. Williams. Really appreciated that update and follow-up. Thank you. I'm gonna put this in a
Received and made the university look good.
I'm gonna put this in an important place. Okay, at this time, I have walked on a resolution vis-a-vis my chairman's remarks, and I know it's a little unconventional, but I feel really strongly about it, and that is a resolution in support of the development of School of Civic Life and Leadership. This is an important move, I believe, for this university, and this board has indicated extreme support for that mission. So I have provided a couple of different copies, and I have a third copy, actually with different edits on it that make it a little less wordy. But at this time, I'm going to call on any board members who would like to discuss the matter. I've got a potential update here. The update I have does take out some of the language, and I'll pass that out. I've got three. Again, I'm sorry, but I'm not perfect. Do have three versions. Well, another version that I have just sort of done actually takes out some of the actual policy quotes. And I think that's a good change because there's no reason to sort of necessarily reference individual parts of the policy manual. I don't think that's kind of superfluous. In my original resolution proposal, I had listed the system code 400.1 and 401.1, and I think that is the relevant code for development of this, but there may be a way to do it outside of that, as long as we, as a university, give the latitude to deans, provost, administration to work within the policy code. I think that's superfluous, in my opinion, to list the code. So I'm going to pass another version. So just I know it's a lot of paper, so I apologize, but I do want to pass this. Yeah, okay. As those edits. My intention is to give this board a voice in support of this school and the efforts of this university to really be a leader. Not only, I mean, the program for public discourse is an excellent program, and it's a shining star, as I said earlier this morning. But it is a program. It does not necessarily engage the students in day-to-day learning and in day-to-day example setting and in day-to-day development of tools. And so, you know, I'm not married to anything in the particular language that I have proposed, but we have to start somewhere. And I'd like to move on this because I think the time is now, and we've got momentum, and we need to capture the wind in our sails on this. So I'd welcome comment and debate in consistent with our pledge on civil discourse and talking things through. So I'll call on Vice Chair Pryor.
I just want to say, Mr. Chairman, thank you for doing this. I think that this is a great idea. I think the time to do it is now. And recognize that this is the board making a statement that we think this is something the administration should do. I just am going to note that it seems that one of the edits was there was sort of a minimum faculty number of 20 identified. I don't know how the board would feel about this, but if that has been taken out, I would like to have it put back in as a commitment to a robust school, and that it not become what I think the program for public discourse has become, which is a, speaker series and a less robust vision of what was intended. So we shouldn't make that same mistake here. And let's identify that we should have at least 20 faculty in this, and that is the board's position. Thank you.
Trustee Jones.
Chair Bullock, thank you for bringing this forward. I think that my commitment to civil discourse, academic freedom, freedom of speech, and freedom of conscience are very well known. So I won't belabor the point by speaking to those issues now. This school, in my estimation, will further embed these important ideals on our campus and in our community. And it will also establish UNC as a leader in promoting these types of ideals in the broader society. I am in full support of this resolution.
Trustee Artis Neal.
I applaud this. I, though respectfully, disagree with Trustee Pryor. I understand where his heart is. I just would rather it organically develop rather than just having a set number, because I believe that if we start this path, the momentum will be such that faculty would want to be involved in this, and that we could see collaboratively collaboration between the departments. I would just hate to hamstring people, that our provost, our chancellor, and those involved. That's would be my only concern, that we would get too much in the weeds by having a number.
Can I respond to that?
Trustee Pryor.
I respect your comments and I appreciate them. And I tend to be one that delegates and wants to give a direction and let the details get worked out. And that's how I've operated in my business. So I'm not a micromanager. However, in this instance, I think we need to set a minimum sort of floor on what we would like to see this school be, or we run the risk of it becoming what was intended as a robust program of public discourse, which in turn turned into a glorified speaker series. And I think that that is an indication that we need to look at this in a different way. And obviously the administration is going to do what they want to do. We can't control that, but we can give some direction here. And I personally think that we need to give a floor of at least 20 faculty members in order for it to have the level of seriousness of commitment that it deserves. Thank you.
Trustee Van.
The differences between the school of public discourse and what this new school is meant to be. It sounds like you're outlining some problems with this public discourse space right now. So I wonder if our resources are better spent and you provide.
Well, I'll try to advance. The program for public discourse is not embedded as sort of where you're taking classes and actually getting instruction and dealing with professors. The program for public discourse really has evolved into what amounts to, and I think Trustee Pryor is correct, at least currently it seems to be a speaker series. Now, it's a very popular speaker series. I've been to a couple of events and I find it to be very engaging, and I think it's a good program. But in terms of providing students that really hands-on skill set, I think this is sort of hand in glove with the program for public discourse. I think they're two sort of different things and they go together.
Gotcha. I guess then my question is, for the people who are fully in support of this, why is your interest in creating a new school rather than finding a way to like meld whatever this idea is with the program that we currently have?
So I appreciate that. And so on that last edit that I handed out, it talks about potentially it says vested, but it should say nested with an N, nested within an existing college or school.
Thank you.
Okay, I mean, we're not necessarily talking about standing up a building, et cetera, but providing this curriculum school setting. Okay, and I think that's a fair look at it. My initial resolution included the number 20 faculty. And there may be a way to even use the number, but still get to consensus. The idea is that, I think the board members would like to see a meaningful educational opportunity here, not something that is simply stood up and there's a couple of people in a back office running it. I mean, is that a fair statement?
Yes, I think that's what we want to avoid here. And I'd like to offer a friendly amendment that we add back in a floor of at least 20 faculty.
Trustee Cotis. Say again.
I think we've talked about this at length. We talked about that this is one of the most pressing issues facing all of us today, is how do we have conversations that are reasonable with each other? How do we encourage public discourse? And I agree. I think that the program for public discourse is a first step, and it's on its way to something more. And I feel like there's been commitment from the administration, informal commitment from the administration, to review that further and pursue things. And I think, what we're saying here is just providing a little bit more support for that. And I like the new language that has the study and consider. I think that makes a lot of sense and shows that that's part of our role here. And I think we all feel strongly, or many of us feel strongly about it, and would like to see the program expanded, and are excited about the opportunities that can present. So I support the resolution as well.
Do you, and let me just, for discussion in terms of using maybe the word robust, and then also including with the idea that a sufficient number of faculty in whatever number in that 20 range would do.
What's the school, Chris, that has the smallest number of faculty?
I don't have those numbers at my disposal. Let me think about it for a minute. Probably SILS, School of Information and Library Science. Do we have? We are checking now. I'm guessing.
But I mean, as a ballpark, I mean, and I mean, we heard 80 yesterday in School of Social Work. Or
yeah, let's get the number. We'll get you the actual. Yeah. And of course, we count faculty in different ways. We have different classes of faculty: the tenure track faculty, term faculty, and adjunct faculty. And many times, if you go to a website, you'll get a miscount because they're putting in adjuncts and others.
Well, then maybe you could give us some direction. What do you think a good target minimum number of faculty should be for this effort?
Well, can we talk about,
or better, how to phrase it?
Can we talk about function a little bit first? Because I think you don't invent numbers without understanding mission. And I'll say that Dean White and I have already been discussing and trying to fund in the funding request for the College of Arts and Sciences that Nate, Kevin, and I reviewed. There was a request to hire 20 term faculty into the program for public discourse, give it a personnel policy. And the purpose for that is the important thing. In the Ideas in Action curriculum, which, let's not forget, is a capacity-based curriculum, there is a call for oral, speech, and communication, debate, deliberation as a capacity, not that one student gets, not that majors in a program get, but that every student get. That's very hard to deliver with fewer than 20 faculty. And so Dean Jim White had already asked for 20 term faculty to do that. And so that actually was what instigated us thinking about how you would structure that in something that might be labeled a school, but be inside the college, because that would also allow you to build that breadth, and then you make some depth. So you would start by broadening out the program for public discourse into an effective curricular capacity in oral, speech, and communication. I think everyone is on board with that. Dean White has already asked for the money to do that. adding to that some superstructure, some faculty who think about a deep curriculum in civic life and leadership that would involve lots of different elements is part of a plan we began to discuss, I think, back in December, and I've shared with some of you. So I think if you really need 20 term faculty, and then you add this curricular element, it may be more than 20 to do the whole thing, and they would fall in different categories of faculty. So we have been talking about how one does this to address all of the things you've raised here, all of the things Kevin is well aware of. Kevin has led his leadership group through the reading of What Universities Owe Democracy. That was the book he assigned for our strategic planning meeting this year. And so this has been a topic that leadership has discussed. I think, when you implement something new in the university, we often have lots and lots of conversations about it. And so I think we're sort of at the front end of kicking off those conversations. So I have no problem with a minimum. I think we know already that the college's assessment of what you need just to do the capacity for all students is about 20. So I don't think this is radical in some way, but I think it may fall short if we want to have the program have these other dimensions. There's also the question of funding. It's not clear in our budget we have the $3 million to give to the college, and my discussions with Dean White are that we really need to get going if we're going to do this. Because the students in the new curriculum started to arrive this year. If we're going to live up to that curriculum, we need to be hiring the people now to get that capacity to them by their junior year, or we're going to fail to deliver part of the curriculum that we promised our students. So I think there is a bit of an urgency around the funding. What we do in terms of structure is a conversation that the campus needs to have, but we had been prepping for that conversation, and you've seen some of that work. So I think the size is whatever the function needs. I think 20 is maybe going to be shy of the function if we put everything in it.
Trustee Cotis.
I was going to say, I think it's going to be important for us to understand the size and scope so that we can request proper funding from various sources for something like this. So we do need to know what we're trying to accomplish in terms of size and funding levels in order to have a proper request out there of the Board of Governors or legislature for funding this.
Chancellor.
I just want to echo what Trustee Cotis has said, and I think by saying that the board wants us to study this to get it right, which is what we did for the School of Data Science and Society. We would not have known at this stage of a process the number of faculty that were going to be necessary to move forward. And we took time, we studied that and through a working group and got to a good place where we know what the number is for that school that we think will allow us to provide the degree programs necessary to move that school forward. And so I do think putting any number in at this point would be premature because we don't know. We are in the process of studying this. And I think that perhaps if I may, if there were going to be an addition to this, it might be that dedicated faculty. We just don't know the number. The new curriculum, which again has been developed over the past 4.5 years, as the provost has already said, has an emphasis on this. I think by the board amplifying your support and need for more of this, it's just a reassurance for us, a commitment that we made over a year ago to this work. And again, Chris mentioned earlier that it's been the focus of our leadership team for the past year on as we began our leadership meetings on the work of Ron Daniels and his book on what universities owe to democracy. So that's just my 2 cents, but we are committed to this.
Trustee Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just will reiterate that I'm excited about this. Obviously, Kevin and I go back and working on PPD together 6-7 years now. And I think creating something robust, especially at this time, it really does provide an opportunity for Carolina to be a nationwide leader. And I think for this board to put its support out there. I also think when we make a budget request, and I know there's work going on that, and I know normally you have an initial year of understand the build out process for something like this, but I think I'm very hopeful that we'll have a legislature that's receptive to a program that really sets our civil discourse and robustly integrates. I know some of these things are going on, but really it's an opportunity for everybody in the state, from the legislative side to the faculty, the board, to push on something that needs attention nationally. So I'm excited about all the work that's been done and gladly support this resolution.
Trustee Davis.
But for over 220 years, our university has been training and preparing students to go out across our state to be leaders of the civic life of our great state, to make better the lives of our fellow North Carolinians from Murphy to Manio, from small communities to large cities, all across our state, moving our state forward. And I believe the establishment of this school is an affirmation of the important role that this university plays, has played, and continues to play in the civic life of our state, in preparing the next generation of leaders of our state. And I support the establishment of the school.
Trustee Meekins.
I'm a simpleton sometimes, but this is basically an attempt to formalize in a resolution what we've been talking about for a long time, about getting this type of program into our school. If that's what this is, I'm in total support of it as it's written. And I thank our provost for being able to just talk to us straight and let us understand what's been going on from the university side in a very clear and concise way, because that's very appreciated. So I'm in favor of this as written.
And that would be the last version I gave out.
Yeah, I don't think we need to get into the nitty-gritty details about how many faculty we need to do what. I think that needs to be worked out through the process.
I do think, and I'll just be totally upfront, I do think that we need to indicate the expectation, at least, that this is a robust program, that this is not something that's going to be put in a corner office. I mean, I other than, I'd like a record of that so that future boards also know, and that there's something we can refer to when we're sort of getting reports back of what's going on. Trustee White.
Thank you for the resolution. I think it's great. We've been talking about this for a while in different ways. I got the pleasure of meeting Dean White when he came to Washington, and he has so many great ideas. One of which was making the Writing Center more robust and making it more of a centerpiece of every student's education. I mean, there's so many ideas that could go into this school that it could be vague. So I think it's great there. I also met with Mindy Story this morning, and we have this working group. I think, there are a lot of things going on that this just makes sense. So I think it's a great resolution. And as far as being robust, I agree also. Is there another way to state that? Could we say, I don't know what the language would be, classes, curriculum, dedicated faculty. Is there another way to state it? Say that it's not a speaker series? Or I don't know if that's a question for you or.
Well, I mean, I don't know, Trustee Pryor, got any ideas other than name 20?
I just would, this is an aspirational statement of support from the board. And I respect what the chancellor said about not wanting to peg it to a number, but I just was trading messages with Vice Chancellor Mangini, and I think that 22 is the smallest number in any school. So we've confirmed that the smallest school on campus has 22 faculty. So why don't we establish the number of 20 as a benchmark so that we can not fall below what would be the smallest school we got? This is,
would it be okay to call it an aspirational goal of 20?
A goal of 20.
Goal of 20.
Of at least. A minimum.
University. I think that probably covered it.
Well, I mean, I like your language. Are you good with Mr. Codis's language on that?
A goal of a minimum of 20.
Can I ask a question? Just going.
Yes, sir.
Going back to context, I know we've talked about wanting every student that comes through the university system to have some training in this area because it's critical to our society. And I think we all agree with that. I don't know many people that don't. Are we talking about creating a faculty that can teach this to all our students as our goal? Or are we talking about creating a separate school where you can somehow, at least in this, somewhere down the line, start getting degrees in this area?
I think the latter is the first step moving toward the former is the first step leading to the latter, right? So
I think the first step would be
you
getting it
nest
right.
it. I think the chancellor's language that he and I just the nesting it, and I think that's the correct nesting it within this college, right? Or bless you, or
sorry.
within another school.
Is that a question? Because I'm happy
Yes,
to
sir.
address it.
Yeah,
All
that's a
right.
question, Mr. Provost.
Yes. There are precedents for having a thing called a school within the general college. Our College of Arts, and I'll give you an example. At Wisconsin, they decided to put their data science school in their college. And we actually discussed a thing like that for the data science school. So I think for reasons that this is undergraduate focused, that you already have PPD in the college and you already have aspirations to build that out in support of the curriculum, this would not be a freestanding school. It would have that name to indicate prominence, but it would not have that name because it had different administrative staff, different, each course in the college that we teach to our students, and indeed the whole curriculum, is carefully reviewed by a process and a committee. So this would share that committee. So the faculty would still have, the college faculty would still have the same governance for these classes as any other of the divisions in the college. So it's a word indicating prominence without a freestanding structure that would require the hiring of very expensive administrative support staff, deans, subdeans, et cetera. I think it's an efficient way to do it that would serve our undergraduates to have it be in the College of Arts and Sciences. And as I said, already sitting there is a request to do 20. So my only concern with 20 is that it may not be anywhere close to enough. There are 1,000 faculty in the College of Arts and Sciences. And I take the point someone said, there'll be faculty here who already do this, who want to participate. That's absolutely true. So we will have faculty who are already there participating in this. And those will add to the numbers because I know we have faculty passionate about this.
Trustee Codis.
Just to follow up on John's point, it's study and consider. So I don't see a problem with saying a goal of a minimum of 20 faculty as part of that, given that we know the size of the smallest school, and that will be part of what's studied and considered.
A friendly amendment to a goal of 20, goal of a minimum of 20.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second to that? I have a second from Trustee Turner. All those in favor of that amendment, say aye. Oh, discussion. I'm sorry, Ralph, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right. Yes, sir.
Our provost, whether he had any concerns about that.
Oh, I have no concerns because if we are able to fund it, we will have 20 PPD term faculty teaching the oral. That's the minimum required to do what we need to do in the curriculum.
Then this is still a goal. So
Well, you're helping us fund it by adding your voice to those who are already trying to fund it. So I think, the way I see this, I would love to work collaboratively with you as we do this and keep you apprised of the progress. And I would like to have the chance for Dean White to perhaps present to you at some point how he sees this and his aspirations for the program in public discourse. I don't think the characterization of that was quite fair. We do have 2 term faculty. They have not been teaching a broad number of courses in the curriculum because it's only 2 people. They have, however, had a training program for faculty to create conditions in their classrooms for discourse, and faculty, especially in the law school, have appreciated the work that they've done. So it hasn't simply been a program of public presentations. It has done some very good work. It is, however, too small to fulfill what the gen ed curriculum we all agreed to intends to do.
Trustee Otis Neal.
Yes, I'd like to offer a friendly amendment. to acknowledge the existing work that they've already been doing on campus and to make it seem more collaborative. So if you look then after the last paragraph, after the first line, where it says, now therefore the UNC-Chapel Board of Trustees requests that the administration of UNC-Chapel Hill, I'd like to add, to accelerate its study of the development of a school of civic life and leadership, rather than how it's stated now. So that after UNC-Chapel Hill, it would say to accelerate its study of the development of school of civic life and leadership. I think that sounds more collaboratively and more collaborative and sounds more to describe what really has been happening. We've had a big push on this board, but obviously you have a lot of people on campus that have been very active in this effort as well. And I think we should sound more like a partnership. So it's not.
Could we have that as a separate line in addition to what we have?
Excuse me?
Couldn't we just state that as a separate initiative that we support the acceleration of that and then just add that as a clause as opposed to adding it to the clause?
I guess so.
Okay, let's do that. Carolyn, Ms. Artis Neal will give you that detail.
Chair, do you want to take once all the revisions are done, do you want?
We will, and then we'll take it up at the end of the meeting after closed session. Trustee Pryor.
Yeah, I just would thank the provost for his remarks on that and just to underscore what was started out with a robust intent with the program of public discourse now has 2 faculty members you just confirmed for our group here. That is exactly what I would like to see avoided in this next effort. And this board is in a position of governance. We can give advice. And I think it is well within our purview to give the advice that this should be developed as opposed to studied, because we diminish the intent of what we want to see happen. And, I recognize, Trustee Artis Neal, your concerns about that. But I mean, everything we're doing is from the perspective of giving advice on what the administration should do. There's no certainty that the administration will follow our advice. But I think we diminish the intent of this with studying as opposed to developing.
No, I took study out. So I don't think.
Okay.
I don't think
Okay, I'm
that's what I
sorry.
said. No,
Took that out.
No, what I said is that we would request that the administration of UNC-Chapel Hill accelerate its, if you want to take study, accelerate its development of the School of Civic Life. I'm totally fine with that.
Thank you.
I'm totally.
So if I
fine.
may,
I prefer that.
I prefer that. I
Okay.
like that language.
Okay.
if
And
I
I'll
may,
accept
trustee
that
Pryor.
amendment
Doesn't
without
that
objection.
study and consider, and so it's no longer something we're thinking about? Is that what that would do?
I think what.
That's our purview.
If I may, I would like
I'll
to add a
accept that
word to
amendment.
I would like to add a word for your consideration. What we are trying to do with the curriculum is implement. And there is urgency around implementing this if we're going to serve those cohorts of students who are arriving now. And so I'm perfectly comfortable to think about implementing. I think everyone will agree, we have to accelerate implementation of our curriculum as it's written, or we're going to fail our students by our own standards.
Teresa, Trustee Arsenio, thank you. I think that's a great addition. I'll accept that amendment. I'm gonna have Carolyn write that up. And I would ask the board what you think of the of adding the goal of a minimum of 20. Okay, so we'll add that as well. I'm going to close debate on this, and as chair, I will retain the right to bring this back up at the end of our meeting after closed session for a public vote at that time. At this time, I'm going to entertain a motion. So I've delayed under Robert's rules. What I've done is delayed to later in the meeting consideration of the resolution. So at this time, I'll call on Secretary Malcolm Turner for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board convene in closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute Section 143-318.11 to prevent the disclosure of privilege for confidential information, and also pursuant to Section 143-318.11 A2, A3, A5, A6, and A7.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? I have a second from trustee Davis. All those in favor? Oh, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. We'll be in closed session. Thank you. Thank you. I'll bring the board back to order. We had a motion and a second to come back into open session. We're now in open session. I'm going to call on trustee Rob Bryan, chair of the University Affairs Committee at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Chair Bullock, and fellow trustees. This report covers items we discussed during the University Affairs Committee yesterday. Committee considered and approved.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll bring the board back to order. We had a motion and a second to come back in.
Wow, we're on a tape delay. Wow. No. Delirium's gonna fully take over here. We considered and approved a request to convert the Annie Louise Dickert Wilkinson Distinguished Professorship to a time limited and renewable professorship, which was approved on the consent agenda earlier this morning. In addition, the committee heard an informational update regarding the draft personnel policy from the School of Data Science and Society from Vice Chancellor Mangini. In closed session, we discussed requested personnel action items as well as the chancellor's proposal for participation by Tier 1 SAAOs in the Senior Academic Officer Retirement Program. These items require a vote now. On behalf of the committee, I move that the Board of Trustees vote to approve the requested final personnel action items, including 9 promotions conferring tenure, 4 new appointments conferring tenure, and 2 appointments of Tier 1 SAAOs. Information about these actions will be available on the board's website after the meeting. I also move that the Board of Trustees vote to approve the participation of Tier 1 SAAOs in the Senior Administrative Officer Retirement Program.
Okay, so let's take those.
In
The
2
first
motions.
approval of the personnel actions, and then we'll handle the bonus program separate. Okay, so I have a motion to approve personnel actions. I have a second from trustee Davis. Any additional discussion? I do want to also just point out, as Chair Bryan did, that immediately following the meeting, those will be posted on the board website or as public record. So any additional discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Chair Bryan has a second motion. That was a motion to approve the chancellor's bonus plan that was approved by the Board of Governors and sent to the chancellor, who was to come to this board for approval of that plan. And he has submitted a plan. So do I have a motion to approve that plan? I have a motion from trustee Artis Neal. Do I have a second? I have a second from trustee Davis. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and that passes. I do have one final, well, there's another item. Rob, are you is this, I'll call on you, Student Body President Van. You had one item.
There was a resolution that Carolyn was kind enough to print out that I passed out to everybody. I think I've had a chance to talk to most everybody about it. And just wanted to open up this space for some discussion. We don't have to vote on this today. I really just wanted an opportunity to get people's opinions, to give a brief overview of the document. The way that our current student government system works, we have our student body president, and the student body presidential election is open to all students, undergrads, grads, and professional students alike. Whichever constituency wins that seat gets, or the constituency that doesn't win that seat gets another president who exists in this other space. And there's a joint governance council that exists to make sure that the student body president is working and representing both of those constituencies in all the spaces they enter, but especially in this trustee space. So as one example, for the remarks that I present in our meetings each month, I have to have those remarks approved by the joint governance council first to ensure that at least 1/3 of them speaks to the grad student constituency. And I say the grad students because historically they are the opposite constituency, given we have so many undergrads. And so what this resolution aims to do is just to ensure that there's going to be an opportunity for both constituencies to have their voices heard in this space. Again, that's 100% the student body president's job. But the only thing that really binds me to that agreement is me following the rules of the Joint Governance Council. And so want to see if this body is interested, I guess, in creating this space so that if 10 years down the line, if we have an undergrad student body president who is not speaking to that community, there's an opportunity available for their issues to still be heard. If 20 years down the line, we have our first ever grad student body president, and that's someone who is maybe not super duper connected to undergraduate issues, it would ensure that there's a space for that other constituency to come and speak. And just wanted to communicate lastly that in my mind, in a perfect world, and I've talked to my opposite constituency counterpart about this as well, this would be time that is consistently yielded. It's not meant to create an additional 3 minutes for us to hear new student issues. It's supposed to be there so that we can make sure that both groups' issues are being spoken to. And so if I were to come to this meeting and say nothing at all about grad student issues because I didn't want to today, then it would be a space for that person to ensure their issues are heard. And so if you guys have any questions or thoughts, I'm so open to them. I've worked on Jean and worked on this a bit with Jean and Ramsey. And so just I'm interested in your thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. Trustee Davis.
A few small changes that I already went over with Trustee Van, and I think she's amenable to. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but in the first whereas clause, just amending that so where it says since the 1920s to say since the establishment of the Dialectic and Society and the Philanthropic Society in 1795. But that was really the beginning of student self-governance on campus, in my view. And then in the third whereas clause, the graduate and professional student government prior to 2017 was known as the Graduate and Professional Student Federation, which had been formed in 1971. So I amended it to say the Graduate and Professional Student Federation, now known as the Graduate and Professional Student Government, was formed in 1971. And then at the bottom, as opposed to saying bi-monthly, in case that ever changes, I took the term from our bylaws and just said regular meeting. So it would, instead of saying bi-monthly, it says regular meeting of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Board of Trustees. And I would offer all of those as friendly amendments.
And they're accepted as such.
Thank you. Is that in the form of a motion to approve that, Trustee Van?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? Trustee Cotis? Yes, sir.
Just curious. So on our current agenda, my understanding was the chancellor and the chair set the agenda and identify various speakers and agenda items. Is this binding on the board then to require certain, it says it's talking about required time. You know, I don't, is there anything else that's required of the board in terms of agenda? Is the board bound by other resolutions or agenda?
Not
certain
that I'm
number of
aware of.
minutes for them?
Yeah, I'm aware that I'm not even 100% sure that the student body president has to have a voice, but it's been tradition.
I think, Marty, it's a good question. I think that the only way to absolutely make it required would be to amend the bylaws. And I think this is saying, saying that we as a board are resolved to allow this to change so that this will be added. But I think to really require it, it would require a change of the bylaws. But I do think that this is something that if we pass it, I think that as it relates to this board, we're sort of committing to it for now.
Yeah, and I guess just to add a little context, if it's helpful for my thought process, was informed in like conversations with different people who worked in this space a lot longer than I have, that in the past, the opposite constituency president was invited and given like a 10-minute window to speak at every meeting. And then that changed to be them being invited to like every other meeting. But I don't think that there are any documents that like require us to do those things. It's just always been the practice of this body. And so bringing this up is something not like a suggestion to change our bylaws, but just for us to further like solidify that commitment that we've made in this historical way.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the passage of the resolution say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you. Got one more item.
Your item, I just want to say that's my first resolution. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Here you go, John. I think that's enough. Because Allie's gone. Next item was a walk-on item from the board chair regarding resolution of the Board of Trustees, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, on the topic of School of Civic Life and Leadership. And I'm going to read the proposed resolution. And I'm going to also let those folks know that a copy of the final passed resolution will be available on the board website, and we may have some available here if anybody's interested. Whereas pursuant to the University of North Carolina Policy Manual and Code, North Carolina citizens and institutions must be prepared to compete in a rapidly changing global environment. And whereas constituent universities shall be guided by the needs of the people of North Carolina in their academic degree program development, approval, and discontinuation actions. Academic program planning and procedures must be nimble, efficient, and responsive to those needs at all levels. And whereas campuses shall continue to have a lead role in identifying academic program needs and in formulating proposals to meet those needs. And whereas the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill Board of Trustees, UNC Board of Governors, and the UNC-Chapel Hill Administration establish the program for public discourse at the university. And whereas the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill community has consistently identified skills in public discourse as necessary to fulfill the strategic plan's point regarding promoting democracy and serving to benefit society. And whereas the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill Board of Trustees has identified the need for degree-oriented programs in the area of civic life and leadership. Now, therefore, the UNC-Chapel Hill Board of Trustees requests that the administration of University of North Carolina Chapel Hill accelerate its development of a school of civil life and leadership, potentially nested within an existing college or school pursuant to the University of North Carolina Policy Manual Code and any other applicable university policy, including, and I'm going to recommend, this is printed, but I'm going to recommend we take out the potential and just say development of a school with a goal of a minimum of 20 dedicated faculty members and degree opportunities for undergraduate students at the university. Is there any additional discussion? I'm making the motion that we approve it. Do I have a second? I have a second from Trustee Pryor. Any additional discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Have a motion to adjourn. I have a second from Trustee Jones. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thanks. We're adjourned. Thank you.